ladies and gentlemen, we should be back with sound.
Are we live? Are we live now?
I believe so.
Oh, all right. We're gonna chill for a second before we do introductions. Before we say anything else, and I'm gonna watch chat.
I want chat to tell me that there's sound. Okay, we got woots and
I got a woot. I got a huzzah. I got a now a sound. We got there.
Okay.
We can do this.
So we're back.
People in chat earlier were saying that it was awkward. We're just standing here. No, I will stare at this camera all day, and it will never be awkward. That's totally fine. I was enjoying chat though. The argument about Chipotle. So hey everyone, welcome to the non-talky version, the non-silent version of Dev Chat for September 19th, 2018.
We have joined the 20th century. We have sound. And pictures.
We have sound, we have pictures, we have color, we have everything.
We have a Pagani too.
Yeah, Pagani just walked in out of nowhere. But hold on, let's do our introductions.
Yeah. Hi. We already did this though.
I'm Will Hungerford, developer at Privateer Press. With me,
I am Will Schoonover, Oz, if you're around too many other Wills. Development manager, like it says on the screen right there, somewhere down here, at Privateer Press.
Behind the scenes, we've got Pagani who just walked in.
Hello.
How's it going? Developer at Privateer Press.
Closer to the mic, Pagani.
Closer to the mic, Pagani? It's not a very good title.
Yep.
There you go.
And you were watching the development chat for September 19th, 2018.
Some might call it a hangout.
Yeah. So if you don't know what you're watching, we here at Privateer Press stream 3 times a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Sometimes we do extras. I'll get to that in a bit. But always Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, always at 10 a.m. Pacific, usually with sound. Tuesdays is the weekly Rumble, and that is where we play the games we make. We just have different people on throughout the company. We play War Machine Hordes, Company of Iron, Monsterpocalypse. We've done Extreme Colossal Wrestling, just kind of whatever we feel like playing.
Yep.
Wednesdays is what you're watching now, Developer Hangout. Usually we talk about CID, but we will be talking about a variety of other things today because we're kind of in between CID cycles and one just ended. Again, I'll get into that. Thursdays, my favorite show, Dallas Kemp on Get Your Paint On. That's where Dallas paints hobbies, talks to you about tips and tricks to do hobby, and just shows you like cool new techniques and stuff like that. Once a month, we also do Primecast Live, and in fact, this Friday is Primecast Live. Primecast Live will also be at 10 a.m. Pacific. Primecast Live is basically where we talk to people throughout the company of all walks of life. It's kind of a variety show.
All walks of life.
All walks of life. You're going to have writers, you're going to have like sculptors, you're going to have painters, you're going to have developers.
When's the janitor segment?
We have a janitor?
Yeah.
Oh, we've never had the janitor on. I don't know. We can do whatever we want. So, but before we get into today's topics, I want to talk about a couple things, especially one that's really pertinent today. That's regarding MiniCrate. So mini-crate.com. MiniCrate is our miniature subscription service where you can go get cool alternate sculpts of models that are only available for 1 month and they're never really available again. And you also do a subscription where you get 6 months worth of miniatures and you get a VIP model. So the current cycle, the VIP model is Alexia, Handmaiden of Death. She looks phenomenal. The first month of that cycle was Lady Rose Riding Hood. And today is the last day you can get Lady Rose. So
time is running out.
I mean, you have today. If you don't order Lady Rose, you're not going to get her. Tomorrow it switches over to the new Lady of the Feast miniature, which we showed off, I believe, on the Insider with Mike Valancourt yesterday.
You've seen art, but you haven't seen the mini yet.
Yeah. Alexia, Handmaiden of Death is still the VIP miniature for any time during the cycle. So if you sign up for a VIP subscription, say next month, the first miniature you would get would be Lady of the Feast, and you would still get the Alexia as long as you get the larger subscription. But if you want Lady Rose, and you should because she's sweet, today's your last day. Also, for those of you who didn't know, we're going to be making Legend of the Five Rings miniatures, and they look dope as hell.
One's on the screen right now.
One is on the screen right now. That's super nice. So mini-crate.com/L5R. You can go sign up. You can't actually order them yet, but you can get on the newsletter to learn more information.
Yeah.
Pagani is pantomiming throwing his phone. What's up, man?
What happens behind the scenes stays behind the scenes.
Oh, does it? I thought you were trying to send us a message, like you were trying to tell us something.
Nah, dog.
Oh, you just okay.
Yeah, and make sure to get to mini-crate.com/L5R and sign up for more information because more information will be coming soon.
Yep.
Very soon.
John says very soon, in case that was too far away from the mic. Also, I just want to say, Chicotage, Grandma Fist says that it was all of Chick's fault. I'm sure he came in at some point in the middle of the night and loosen the cord
Sure.
that we couldn't find. Because we basically had to go through and just basically plug everything back in. And we found it eventually.
If you're watching this later, and so obviously, Oz just look off to the side and set a bunch of stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube later, you can watch all the streams later at youtube.com/privateerpressprime. We stream on twitch.tv/privateerpress, and then we put the videos up on YouTube later. So chat is live right now, and we occasionally are going to say someone's username and respond to them. So if you're watching this and wonder who we're talking to, we're talking to people live. Come join us live. A lot of the dev chat specifically is us just talking to the crowd live. But what we're referring to, the first couple clips probably, or hopefully won't be uploaded to YouTube. Our first 2 attempts at streaming today had no sound.
No, let's put that on YouTube.
If those end up on YouTube, I have no idea. No idea what to say. So let's talk about what we're talking about today. Today is not a CID talk.
The CID just ended.
Yes, the Circle Tharn CID just ended. We're having our internal development reviews of all the materials to get ready for the update that will be coming later. We've obviously got the Retribution dynamic update that we are planning on getting out to you as soon as we can. There was kind of a blackout period during WTC because we didn't want to do any updates mid-WTC because that's not cool. So the next CID cycle that's coming up is Exalted. Scorn Exalted. Obviously, there was that sort of mini cycle with the Guardian, Supreme Guardian, that everyone got to get a taste of things, but you'll be seeing a lot of the new stuff that's coming out. We're not announcing the date for it just yet.
Nope.
It's coming soon, but we will not be talking about any CID stuff. Somebody brought up as well the new convergence model that got previewed,
Yes.
the Frustrum. It will be CID'd.
Yeah.
It will not be part of a larger convergence CID cycle at this time. So don't expect that to be an indicator that we're about to do a big convergence cycle. It will kind of be on its own, either as part of another larger CID cycle or literally kind of how the Supreme Guardian was by itself. So you get more information about that, but I just want to manage expectations. Don't think that miniature means we've got a huge convergence coming up. So what we want to talk about today is basically 3 different things, and we also just kind of want to talk to the chat. One, we're going to talk about a couple organized play events that are coming up. They're super casual and fun because we don't talk about the casual stuff as much on here. It's usually the more competitive tournament stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to give a couple quick mentions of those. Then switching gears immediately into the competitive stuff, we're going to talk about the WTC. Specifically, we're going to talk about the lists of the winning team, as well as the list of the player that won the Solo Masters.
And just some other just interesting things we saw from players that were trying things that you might not have ever seen before.
And we have resident War Machine tournament expert Will Pagani behind the scenes to help comment on such things.
What's up?
How's the baby?
Sleeping well.
Nice. And then we're also going to have a little bit of a Monsterpocalypse talk at the end. So, to get right into things, quick reminder, everybody, the Longest Night rules just went live. If you've never played in Longest Night before, Longest Night is a single-day event that is sort of Halloween-themed.
Sort of.
I mean, okay.
It involves costumes and candy.
It's straight up Halloween-themed.
It's really Halloween.
The rules are live now. The event happens next month. People can order their prize kits, which are a hollow hold and patch for your army bag or your backpack. Either stores through distribution or register stores or game clubs can see the organized play kits at store.privateerpress.com. If you've never played in one of these events, there's 2 scenarios. They're really fun and super casual. One of them literally involves having candy bowls that your miniatures run up and raid, and you can eat candy as you play and get different effects. There's also, you can have a costume contest. It encourages people to bring candy to show up in costume, and there's so much great War Machine cosplay out there. The Longest Night is, I mean, we could do a cosplay contest earlier in the year or later in the year if we want to, but Halloween's a great time for it, right?
Yeah.
People are already thinking about getting in costumes. So if you go to Organized Play, you go to Privateer Press's website, and you go to Organized Play /longest-night, you can check out the rules. Talk to your local store about running one. You know, take a break from maybe testing for steamrollers or whatever else you might be doing, and just have a little fun. Dress up, eat some candy, and dress up in costume.
Also, that patch might be my favorite patch we've ever made.
The hollow hold,
because it's like older patches were like a sword or whatever. This is a picture of Holden and wearing a trencher helmet with like one weird eye and one like creepy eye, and yeah it's awesome.
The other thing I want to let everybody know is coming in November, we're going to have, it's been a while since we've had a narrative league, and we have a narrative league coming up in November. It's going to be 1 month. It's called the Criterion League, and being this is the 15-year anniversary of War Machine, it's the first ever historical league we've done. So in the league, you'll be able to play with any of the miniatures you have, any faction you want, but you basically use the scenarios to take the roles of different factions and armies during key parts of the history of Western Emerald. So, for example, one of them, one player represents the Orgoth, while the other one represents the rebels using the first ever Colossals. Another one is the burning of Assyria from Everblight when he came out of the city and just started setting everything on fire. And these scenarios will let you play through these like really key cinematic important moments throughout Western Imran. And I think it's just cool. We've just never done a historical league before. So it's called Criterion. Keep an eye out for it. The prizes are super awesome. They're a 15th anniversary War Machine patch and coin. So playing in it just for participating, you get one. There's no winner. You don't have to beat everybody to get the prizes. You just get one for showing up and having a good time. If you're into historicals, if you like the fluff and setting of War Machine, this is going to be a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah, and don't worry, you don't have to play the specific army. You don't have to be like, when this happened and this happened, it was these two armies.
Yeah.
We set it up so that there's a way to represent you're playing the first Colossals and the other person's playing the Orgoth with whatever factions you want to run.
So Benber007 says, going back to CID, because that's normally our topic, guys, can you give us an ETA on the Ret CID? Please, please, please. Soon. We're not going to give an exact date, because if we give an exact date or even say like this week or next week and that gets missed, it's always an issue.
It's coming.
So, but
working on
it is definitely a very high priority right now, and we're trying to get it out as soon as we can. We know everybody's been waiting for a while. So, most recent War Machine news, especially in the world of competitive play, the WTC just happened, the World Team Championship. I'm sure most of you watching have heard of it, but if you haven't, it's this amazing community-driven event where players from all over the world, representing their countries, get together on 5-person teams and face off to determine which team is going to walk away with the crown for that year. There's also a Solo Masters that occurs. And we have to give congratulations to the Australian Flaming Galas, I think was the name. That was the Australian team that won, came in first place. We're going to be talking about their list today. They did a fantastic job, and it was really cool to see. It's a lot of names on there that won't surprise you when you see them. Christopher Davies, Aaron Whaley's, and Aaron, who was just featured in the IG Finals at Lock and Load, being part of the team that won the WTC. That's huge for him. I saw his Facebook post. He was completely floored. So the WTC was an amazing event, and there was a lot of really cool stuff that came out of it. Specifically, I saw a lot of posts, and Pagani, if you want to chime in here from off camera as well, from a lot of the top-end players promoting list diversity in really creative ways and coming up and basically saying, like, for people that worry that the meta is solved, that, you know, that Slayer spam or this and this, there's no way to play around that. Like, we saw some really creative list building. We saw some factions do really well that I guess people didn't anticipate doing well. And Christopher Davies had a particularly fun post where he just talked about the strength of Khador and how well they did at the WTC this year. Pagani, would you agree with those statements?
Yes.
The best part that you all can't see right now is when I talk to Pagani, it's a slow lean up to the mic, and then he just sort of says it and leans right back. That's why I keep doing it. So, what I want to do is I'm actually going to bring up the lists, and I want to talk about some of the lists that I just felt like they were interesting, and talk about them. Actually, before we get into the team that won the WTC, I want to talk about the Solo Masters winner. So Sven Dush, I believe is the proper way to pronounce that, won the Solo Masters using Khador.
How many players were there? Do we know?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
Pagani, come on.
I don't know.
Ah, man. Somebody in the chat will tell me then.
So,
you guys.
Sven was playing a Wolves of Winter list and an Armored Core list. He was playing Sorcerer 3 in the Armored Core list, which was really cool to see a miniature that's so new to the meta perform so well. And when I heard he won with Wolves of Winter, my immediate reaction was, I've seen a lot of people playing around with this Old Witch, the Old Witch 2 Wolves of Winter list that kind of protects the Doom Reavers using Stormwall. The spell Stormwall, not the Colossal.
Windstorm.
Windstorm. It used to be called Stormwall in Mark II.
It did.
Yeah, thank you. Did you say it didn't or it did?
It did.
It did.
Yes.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
I need you to stop doing that. So anyway, heard a lot of people talking about the Old Witch 2 list that was protecting all the Doom Reavers using that spell. However, this was a Vlad 2 list, and I had not seen a ton of that going on. And that was
a little tiny baby windmill.
but let me go through the list real fast. It was a Vlad 2 with a Victor, double Forge Seer, a Cold Lord, Saxon Orc, 4 units of swordsmen, Doom Reaver swordsmen, and then a minimum unit of Grey Lord Outriders. I have not been able to catch any of the streamed game yet, but I really want to see this list in action. And I want to see what his plan was. I want to see the matchups he has, and I want to see how he did, right? Because Doom Reavers are just a classic unit. I personally love Doom Reavers and have been paying very close attention to how they're being used in the meta. Any of our traditional, trenchers, Winter Guard, Doom Reavers, core units that a lot of players, when they would look up War Machine, they would see these first because they've been around for so long. And we haven't seen a ton of Doom Reavers in the meta, and so seeing him do so well is really interesting. And so I look forward to seeing some battle reports. Pagani, did you have any thoughts about that list and how it performed?
No.
Thank you.
So Cedric Bigglesworth says there were 37 players in the Solo Masters at the start.
Cool. The Sorsha 3 list, on the other hand, Sorsha 3, 3 Kodiaks, Dracoon, Covenant, double Strike Tanker, double Suppression Tanker, a Tannis, max Demo Corps with Drago, max Shock Troopers with the Officer. Whereas the Wolves of Winter list just gets in there and just murders the world and is a ton of Weapon Masters. This list also does a ton of damage, but it's so beefy. It's so much damage. We're going to see a list that's kind of similar in terms of just trying to grind your opponent down through attrition. In the WTC winning team, there was a Maylock player who had more posse than I ever expected to see crammed into a list. So, but yeah, that's really interesting pairing, seeing Armored Core and then Wolves of Winter played that way, and neither being a heavy Jack Spam list. And that was one thing noticeable from the WTC was a lot of major infantry lists. We know right now that popular in the meta is the Slayer list. And there was plenty of Slayers at the WTC, but it wasn't as it wasn't oppressive in the amount of it, as were like Jack Spam lists. They weren't oppressive. There was a lot of infantry out there. And when you look at the top 5 lists, you had Aaron's Slayer Spam list. But other than that, they were all pretty heavy infantry lists amongst the top 5 players in the WTC, and that was really interesting to see. Let's see if we have any comments from chat right now about the WTC. Swampman says he thinks he only dropped Sorsha. That might be true. I haven't counted all the battle reports. I would be interested to see if he did end up dropping the Doom Reaver list, and that could be a lot of fun to watch. But real fast, let's give a quick chat about the WTC winning team. Aaron Whaley, Christopher Davies, David Potts, Jeff Gillea, and Peter Bates. The Australian Flaming Gallows, congratulations again. And also congrats to, Poland South and England Knights. Poland South finished 2nd place, England Knights finished 3rd place. All just amazing players, great games. All the photos and reports I've seen from WTC have been amazing. Is that a show you ever want to go to?
It would be interesting to go to.
I think it'd be great to go to.
Yeah.
You know?
Traveling to Europe is always weird, though.
I heard Poland is basically, like, when you go to Poland, it's just a really good time. And it's the reason they keep having it there is because everybody just has there's really good food and good drinks and it's a really fun atmosphere. And I've never been to Poland before, and I would love to go visit. Also, apparently the beer's cheap.
I believe it's in Belgium next year.
Is it in Belgium next year?
That is what I've heard. I'm not sure that's 100% true, but that's what I've heard.
I appreciate that. I've been to Belgium once.
Thank you.
I've only been to Germany.
So let's go through Aaron's list real fast. We're going to go through the Australian list and just kind of talk about what we're playing. And we won't do an exact run through of everything because we're going to cover 10 lists and talk about what he's playing. So Aaron was playing Scar 3. He was playing Slaughter Fleet, right? Yeah. He had double Min Blood Gorgers. He had double Max Marauders. And he was running sort of the usual, he had Axiara and Slaughterborn and the normal support crew.
Yeah.
That was backed up by his second list, which is Asphyxious 3, and let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Slayers. Obviously, 3 free Night Wretches. He was using the Ironmongers, the Machine Wraith, and the Soul Trapper. I don't believe this was the same list he actually was playing at the Iron Gauntlet Finals. I think there was a couple alterations, but it was pretty close. Aaron has shown us that he's got absolute mastery of that list.
Absolute mastery.
I mean, he just keeps showing up at top tables.
Speaking in only hyperbole.
What are your thoughts on it?
Only hyperbole.
Sure, he understands that list well and plays it well, but I don't know about absolute mastery.
Fair. Have you ever met Aaron before?
I believe I have said hi to him at Lock and Load.
Aaron is probably one of the nicest guys on the planet. So again, congrats, Aaron. He's just a super nice guy, and I hope some of his battle reports get there for anybody who is interested in playing that Slayer list or wants to just learn about playing Crix. He's a really great player to watch. Christopher Davies, possibly one of the quietest players I know. Not a really loud guy. Doesn't really,
Very inactive.
Very inactive. Very inactive and not loud at all. Known for Khador, right?
Sure, I'll take your word for it.
Christopher's known for Khador. Back in the old Karchev Jack Spam days, man, That was Chris just rocking it. There's a couple famous photos from War Machine Weekend with him doing this thing.
Pagani leaned in and then shook his head no and then leaned out. They can't hear you shake your head no, Pagani.
The Karchev list came out of Sweden originally.
Sure. That's because Christopher Davies was clearly in Sweden doing it.
No.
Anyway, as I said, known for it.
I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry.
You sure? Do you want to just come around?
No, it's good.
You just put your head right here on my shoulder and lean
I
into
could
my
kneel
mic.
between the two of you. It'd be adorable.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about his list. He was playing Vlad 2 in Armored Core. He had a pair of double tanker, double strike tanker, double suppression tanker, which we're seeing a lot in the Armored Core lists. And then he went with Max Shock Troopers and Officer, Max Democorps, Drago, Atanis, unit of Kiazi Eliminators. He had a Covenant, Devastator Juggernaut, and he brought the Man of War Siege Chariot. Again, really, really cool to see that these new models that have just hit the meta.
Yeah.
Like the new officers, the new UAs, Atanis, the Siege Chariot, which just came up through Bahi recently. We were talking about Sorcerer 3 earlier, are making such a big impact on the meta. And I think a lot of it has to do with the refinement of the CID process. And everyone kind of getting their hands on it early, being able to gauge their matchups early on before the model actually releases, and then get some more practice ahead of time, and just helping with the feedback playtest process.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that we're seeing as many siege tankers as suppression tankers, because there was some conversation during the CID process that the suppression tanker was too good, the siege tanker wasn't good enough and stuff, but they're both appearing.
Strike tanker.
It's a strike.
Siege chariot.
Siege chariot. Yeah, I know. The names changed a little bit in development, and then they're similar.
His second list was Irsk 2. So he's playing.
And all the Winter Guard?
Oh, it was Winter Guard Command. So we're talking multiple min units, 2 max units of Winter Guard infantry, all with you had what, a total of 9 Rocketeers, double command attachment. You had Joe, you had Alexia, just a ton of bodies on the board. And I heard multiple people saying during the event that apparently there was a phenomenal pop and drop assassination on Krios in a trench that occurred. Again, I'm hoping to see some battle reports posted or some video posted.
That one is live streamed from the finals, and it's pretty amazing.
Pagani, since you've seen it and we haven't had a chance to watch it, could you tell us what happened exactly?
Well, I mean, you kind of covered it. Krios walked up into a trench, and a field gun with Joe's +2 to hit and fire for effect walked up and rolled the 11 to hit him, and then he got shot by 1,000,000 rockets on the top of turn 2.
Just hard,
Not a great way to lose, unfortunately.
rolling 11.
Sometimes you hide in a trench and, someone rolls boxcars, or 11 in this.
I mean, it's a boosted 11, so it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
we've talked about what a nice guy Aaron is, and we've talked about how quiet Chris is. But my personal, fully biased favorite player on the winning team was
You have
David.
to look up his name.
No.
Okay.
I was pulling the list up. David Potts. Why? He brought minions.
Oh, so it's just faction bias.
Total faction
It's
bias.
just faction bias.
So he brought Rask 1 and Malak 1. He brought a Will Work for Food, Rask 1 list, and he brought the Malak list. I just want to talk about his Malak list real quick, because
How many Gatorman?
6 min units of posse?
6 min units of posse. That's interesting.
6 min units of posse? That is awesome. I mean, I've been usually seeing like 4 units, but I've never seen, I have not seen too many people rocking the 6 min unit of posse. So that list real fast. Malak 1, Wrastler, Swamp Horror. He had the Gatorman Soul Slave, Feral Geist, 2 Gatorman Husks. You go with your bad self. That's awesome. I love that model, and I'm excited to see people playing with it. Double Witch Doctors, a Totem Hunter, and 6 min posse. That sounds like a ton of fun to play with, and an interesting challenge to play against. So
Pagani was hovering near the microphone like he wanted to say something.
No.
Okay, cool.
So, fourth on the team, we're going to talk about Jeff Galea. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Jeff was bringing Retribution before the Retribution CID went live, right? So those changes haven't happened. So he's rocking kind of like old Retribution. He brought Kalissa 1 and Assyria. He brought both, so the Assyria list is definitely more range-centric. It's got a Banshee Chimera Siren. He's rocking a pair of Ghost Snipers, double Stormfall Archers. He does have the Electromancers and the AFG in there. He does have he's got Risk of his Defenders, but also at the same time, like that's a very just ranged heavy Retribution style list that sort of leaf blower, right? You get too close, he gets near the zones, you try to walk up and contest, and you can just really lay waste to people. His second list, however, Kalissa 1, kind of similar, but he went a little bit heavier on the Risk of Us Defenders. So he went with Kalissa Run, triple Harpy and a Siren, which I really like that battle group. And I think that's really
all brand new lights too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had triple mechanic. He had Eris 1. He had Feign Knight Scareth, because you're getting Feign Knight Scareth for free in the Theme Force. And that one was Defenders of Io, so I mean, just so much value there. Again, double Ghost Snipers. Again, Vire Electromancers. An AFG, single Stormfall Archer. And then he had a max unit of Defenders, Risk of Us Defenders, and a min unit of Defenders. So there's a lot of overlap in model count between the two lists. But I like the way that they played just totally different. One was definitely completely more like all in on the range game with you had that one unit of the Risk of Us Defenders, where the other one is definitely more like use Kalissa's feet, use her abilities, protect, and then it's very powerful battle group centric, even though it's only 4 lights. And the way the WTC worked with them sort of being able to set up their matchups, I could see these two lists having a fair number of bad matchups. There's things you don't want to drop either one of these into, but this felt sort of like a tactical nuke. Like this, he was going to be used very specifically against certain other matchups and certain other players, and so that sort of talked to the matchup process of the WTC and the tactics you have to use as your team.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about that event is it's not just the tournament organizer randomizes and then you get paired by all that stuff. There's choices in those teams when you set up, so you know who you can send against other factions and lists and pairings and all those things.
Yeah, which sounds. I've not personally been able to participate in an event like that. I know that Pagani has as he's going to the WTC. That part of it sounds so interesting and wonderful to me, and I hope to be able to play in something like that one day to try it out myself.
Were those like strategic kind of like Overlord general options are always interesting in any kind of game.
Yeah.
And a tournament that does it is added.
And it requires like a pretty exhaustive knowledge of the matchups, because you have to look at what your opponents are bringing, what you've got available to you, and then make the right choices. So you don't just drop somebody into something where there is no such thing as like a 100% guaranteed win, but you can have a matchup where your opponent is slightly more favored because you didn't bring the right tools to bear versus what the question they're asking. So the last player on the winning team, Peter Bates, brought Mercenaries. To talk about his list, so this was kind of the other Jack Spammy list we saw. It was an Osram list that ran double Driller, quad Blaster, and double Rock Ram. Seeing double Rock Ram, by the way,
Rock Rams are awesome.
Made me happy. I love Rock Rams. I don't see a ton of people playing them. I think they're a phenomenal warjack. I've always kind of called them the Reckoner of mercs, because the assault, they have a really powerful gun and they just hit like a truck. Obviously they're got different stats. They're slower, but I love Rock Rams, and I think they're really great value for 14 points. They're awesome, and we just don't see a ton of them. The rest of that list was filled out with a Max Forge Guard, pair of artillery, and then a series of solos. Like he had a Kel, he had Gorman, he had Eris in there. Anastasia, just very carefully selected tactical choices. Anastasia for just the +1 to go first. Pagani, do you have a comment, sir?
Nope.
Y'all don't understand the challenge we're going through right now. As Pagani has walked in and just sitting there basically just smiling and occasionally giggling at what we say.
Yep.
Yeah.
His other list was Gorton 1. These were both irregulars, by the way.
Yeah.
So Gorton 1, double Driller, double Gunner, and then he went for infantry with the second list. It had 2 max units of Halberdiers, Steelhead Halberdiers, 2 max units of Press Gangers, 2 sets of Kayazi Eliminators, Alexia 1, it had Holt, it had Piper, it had Ragman, it had Bosun Grogspar. Like, it was straight up dude spam list. Which, looking at those 2 possible drops, those are 2 really hard questions as an opponent to try and possibly answer. You've got the one more gun-heavy list, and you've got Osram, who's an incredibly powerful caster, and then Gorton, who is also a powerful caster and has potentially one of the strongest feats in the game. That's why it doesn't go out much further than it goes, with his huge infantry spam list. So, I can see why this team won. Both their lists were solid. They're all fantastic players, and they presented their opponents with a series of really, really hard choices. So yeah, that's the list I wanted to talk about, and just sort of again give kudos to everyone that went to WCTC. Kudos to the winning team. Kudos to everybody that finished in the top. Like, it was awesome seeing the community come from across the globe together for the WTC, and can't wait to hear more from next year.
Pagani.
I agree.
So
Yeah, Pagani and I, we were at Attack X in Kamloops, British Columbia.
Yep.
Over the weekend, showing off Monsterpocalypse and hanging out during their events. They had a Champions and a Masters and some caster draft type stuff on Sunday.
I heard their Masters was the largest that they've run at that event.
They had 58 players in their Masters.
I think that's right.
So it was bigger than last year, and I think it's been the biggest one so far. And that convention is growing slowly, but substantially every year.
Sure.
But it's also
it grew a bunch this year. It almost doubled.
yeah, but it's also kind of in a weird isolated pocket of Western Canada.
Yeah, I wanted to drive up there really bad.
Yeah, it's close enough to drive up for the day from Seattle and from Vancouver and from other places. But there's a big gap between it and
Do you know off the top of your head who won the Masters and who won the Champions at that event? You may not have. I know you were demoing Monsterpocalypse over there.
On Monsterpocalypse.
Okay.
But Pagani and I were talking about WTC lists and other shenanigans that happened during the show, and the fact that a lot of stuff was represented. You mentioned that one of the other top teams was Poland.
Yeah.
And I know that both Polish teams were running Grimkin with interesting lists. So that's fun to see.
Sure. I mean, like, if you want, real fast before we move on to talking about Monsterpocalypse and its upcoming release, I could pull that up real fast and let's find one of those Grimkin lists. So we had a Crix player, we had Protectorate. This is for the Poland team. Another Protectorate. So Crix, Protectorate, Convergence. So must have been just Tomas playing. Okay, so that's Circle. So looks like nobody who finished second place at Poland was playing Grimkin at all.
I think it was the other two Polish teams.
Okay.
Yeah, there were three. Sometimes there's multiple teams for a country.
So,
But yeah.
So-
Pagani said both the Polish teams, so he confused
well,
me.
it happens.
It's his
We're all allowed to make
But yeah,
mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's all the WTC stuff we want to talk about. And again, really what I want to spend this time as the dev chat, like I said, to sort of be a kudos to everybody and at us as the people that like manufacture the game, work on the rules. We love seeing stuff like this. It's just this huge celebration of the game that we all love, that you all love, and it's our careers and it's a passion for all of you. And so seeing stuff like War Machine Weekend, WTC, is a real treat for us. So. You want to talk about some monster? Speaking of a passion and a career, you want to talk about some Monsterpocalypse?
Yeah, a little bit of Monsterpocalypse news that will matter to some people out there. There was a delay in customs with one component, like we talked about yesterday on the live stream, and there's also been a press release for it. The new release date for Monsterpocalypse is October 5th, so it's not very much farther away, but it is being delayed a little bit because of the very end of the process. The last piece was delayed.
Sure.
And in addition to that, just to reinforce that the organized play stuff for that is available for stores to order and get their hands on. And there's two kinds of organized play. And I've seen a lot of Facebook comments and stuff, people talking about the differences and asking questions about the differences. So I just want to specify that there is Crush Hour, which is the tournament kit.
Yeah.
So if your store wants to run a tournament that works a lot like Steamroller, but has some Monsterpocalypse specifics in it, the Crush Hour event is for that, and it comes with the Privateer Press HQ building as a prize. And that's a proxy for the corporate HQ, so it's a prize you can play in your games. But
if
then,
you want the card for that, you can get it on the page.
yes, the regular corporate HQ's rules are coming out with it in November, but the card for that model is available as a digital asset on the website.
The reason we did a digital asset instead of including it is because the other prize that comes in Crush Hour are the big foil monster cards. And we had a long conversation about, should it be the foil building card that the building you would get, or should it be foil monster cards? And honestly, a foil monster card is just cooler than a building card.
Yeah.
The building cards are like standard size, like, poker card size, whereas the monster cards are big double-sided monstrosities.
Yeah.
And it was so much cooler. And we could put the asset up. And plus, if we ever change the sculpt of the building available in the future, having an online feature just makes it really easy for us to be able to change out what rules are available.
Yeah, and it also doesn't force a player that wants to use the Privateer Press HQ to buy the regular one to get the card rules.
So there's something I want to educate everybody about real fast. I mentioned in the beginning, and this is a question I get a lot. So we talked about Longest Night, we talked about Criterion, we talked about Steamroller, talked about Crush Hour. Organized play kits. There's been a little bit of confusion I've been seeing about how someone can get all the sweet prizes. So if you're a retailer retailers can order through their distributor. There's another way to order them if they can't get them through their distributor. We have an online store, store.privateerpress.com. That's where all the Black Anchor stuff gets ordered. That's where you can go order bits and all kinds of cool apparel from Privateer Press. There is an organized play section on there, but it's not visible. You have to be logged into an approved account to see the OP kit section where you can then purchase kits. To be an approved account, you either have to be a retailer or you have to be an approved game club. So if you have a question about either, email frontdesk@privateerpress.com. They'll tell you how to get the approved account so you can go see the online kits, the online OP kits, and purchase them.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I've seen a lot of questions about, which is the other kind of organized play kit, is people are asking about more maps. The starter comes with a two-sided map, and it's in both the Protector and the Destroyer starters. But the Isle of Annihilation League is a third map. So that is a one-sided map. It has a big volcano in the middle of it, so it's very distinct. You can tell it from a distance. And those come in packs of 4, and retailers and clubs and stuff can get those. Mm-hmm. And the intent of that is that every player that participates in the league gets one of those maps.
It's a sweet map, too.
There's also a couple of really cool faction life tracker coins in there.
Yeah.
There's a Planet Eater coin and a Guard coin that replaces the little cardboard coin that tracks your health on your monster card.
Okay. So we have a couple. So that's the main stuff we wanted to talk about today, and we're going to look at chat for a little while. We're going to see if we can answer a couple questions. One question I saw that came up that we may not have the answer to was: did the delay of the materials for the release of Monpox, or Monsterpocalypse coming out October 5th, did that delay everything else that's already been solicited?
No, it did not.
Okay.
So the October releases were later in the month of October, and they were models and cards printed domestically. So none of that stuff was traveling overseas. And it was just the dice that got hit by customs because there was a big container with a bunch of other stuff in it.
None of the War Machine and Horde stuff is
Yeah, no other delays were affected in any way by the Monsterpocalypse delay. So there will be 2 Monsterpocalypse releases in October, and then November will still be Buildings, and December will still be Pterosaurs and Martian Menace.
Cool. Somebody asked when long chop hats are going to be available in the store. I don't know, unfortunately. I'm not sure when individual bits go in the store. I'm not really sure about that process. There's been a lot of talk about what CID is next. We mentioned it earlier in the show. I'll repeat it. The Scorn Exalted CID will be next. So we haven't announced the start date. Again, soon, as is the dynamic update for Retribution CID and everything that happened previous to WTC. You'll be seeing that coming up in the near future. The next question regards the Monsterpocalypse buildings. Will the buildings in November be only 1 per package, or are they sold in like a 2 or 3 pack?
They are individual blistered buildings. There was a talk, I believe, on the monsterpocalypse.com website as previews that we would be selling building packs, but we rearranged that all because of some production concerns and other stuff. So now you'll be able to buy a power plant in a blister and buy as many power plants as you want without having to buy other buildings that you might not want or you might not need as many numbers of.
Okay. Somebody asked, is there a possibility for certain bits like the Long Chops hat, the Far Seer hat, Tiny Juggernauts to appear in OP kits as prizes? That actually happened with Rotten Bounty last year. The Gremlins from the Death Knell kit, the ones that are the playing band, everybody who played got one of those. And then in Vengeful Deeds, everyone got a free Dragon that we gave full rules for Company of Iron to. He's playable in Company of Iron as a normal model outside the league. So do we do stuff like that? Sometimes it depends. I can tell you the upcoming Narrative League Criterion doesn't have a miniature in it, but it really depends on the story we're telling in the narrative and what are the prizes we think are appropriate. So it can happen, but it wouldn't be like you get to choose. It would be a very specific bit or miniature added depending on what was going on. I doubt there'll be an OP kit that comes with a lot of Long Chops hats. That would be weird.
Long Chop hats for everyone.
Dragon Pup says, Scorn Exalted CID. Aside from the Supreme Guardian, the Extoller Telemetry guy, and Abaddon the Keeper, are there more new models coming?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
At least one more, right?
Yeah. But we're going to hold off to have a full-on dev chat about Scorn CID when that's all ready. So we don't want to talk too much about it.
We usually don't preview them until we have a date to announce or we're close. And so you can expect one of these dev hangouts in the future to be kind of a preview of what models are in there and some of the other changes we're thinking about before that hits.
Yeah. Daniel RG on Facebook says the same thing. Which casters will be revised in Scorn CID? We're holding off on that information. We'll be talking about it in the future because we want to stay focused on what we're doing now. You'll hear it very, very soon. Regarding the CID that just ended, which was the Tharn one, there's a great question from Striker911, kind of for all three of us. How do you feel the Storm Raptor ended up after the battle reports and the public testing? So I'll just say, we're still doing our internal review of all the information. The CID just ended. So it's not 100% finalized yet. We have a lot of internal discussions and then final tests, like final proofing to do before it goes live. As for where it is, where are you at, Oz?
I think it's pretty good, but we still have to discuss it because I'm usually a little too busy to read all the battle reports and look at everything else and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So our process, and we've explained it before, is a CID ends. We have at least a meeting, sometimes 2 meetings, to talk about the feedback. And then we usually decide if, in that early meeting, decide if there's anything else we want to play test for another week or 2 or 3 or whatever. Or if we wanted to discuss amongst ourselves and think about, sometimes we take a break to think about for like a week, any other changes. Because sometimes, like you guys have been reading comments that somebody else hasn't seen, and there's a suggestion that didn't make it into our like group consciousness until after the end. So sometimes we still wrap all your ideas and feedback and stuff a week or so after, before we make the final changes, which is why we always, and we haven't warned this time, don't make purchases based on CID rules, make purchases based on published rules.
Sure.
Because there's always a chance that even though something ended a CID one way, that we will still reconsider and maybe dial it up or dial it back down a little bit, depending on our final couple of weeks of discussions.
Sure. For me, where I'm at, overall, the amount of, first off, somebody said, how are we happy with the quality of battle reports? Kudos to everyone that participated in this CID. We received more battle reports than I think we've received in any other CID cycle. And there were some really, really great ones. The Circle community and their friends and people that were just even kind of interested came together and produced some really great stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying every single battle report was the amazing best thing, but like overall, the battle reports in this one were really, really good. And that's where I spent the majority of my time. I went into theory and list building a little bit, but I spent most of my time just reading battle reports and really digging into them. As for the Storm Raptor, my personal thoughts is I really like the pulse. And there are 3 knobs that kind of appeared throughout CID that I think are either one's going to get removed and or tweaked heavily, which is the range of that gun, it's the minus range you get for shooting at it, and then its ability to move with deceptively mobile. Those are all things that appeared at various stages of it existing. And if it stayed range 14, minus 5 range to shoot it, got to advance 3 inches at the end of its activation, in my opinion, that's entirely too much. It proved out to be a little too strong, and I think some of that's going to have to get dialed in and a little bit tightened. There were a couple concerns about the pulse on both ends. That either it wouldn't be useful or it would be too easy to assassinate, but the battle reports showed us in general that it wasn't overpowering, that it was really useful, and that it wasn't always useful. Sometimes you just don't face infantry, and that's fine. And there were some cool assassination attempts that came up with the Storm Raptor. I think I saw one from Chad Kaufman in particular where he got to pull off something cool with it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Zimmergeist, I'm going to pronounce your name that way, has an interesting question. Could be Zymer.
It's just science.
Zymergist. I pronounce things the way I want. That question is, are dev chats pre-planned or did we only discuss them as they come up? So dev chats are a special thing on the CID forums where we start a thread with a specific question and let people give us feedback. Those are generally a result of our meetings.
Yeah.
Because we come in, we talk about the feedback we're seeing from you guys, and we discuss changes. And sometimes we get to a point where we're not sure, like 2 or 3 of us will have strong opinions that don't agree, and that's usually when we open it up to a dev chat. We say, these are the things we're talking about. Sometimes we add a thing or 2 on there just as other ideas that have popped up that might not be the main things that we're talking about, to get that really focused feedback from the community.
Yep.
But we don't go into a CID saying we're going to dev chat this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, because it's much more of an organic process the way it evolves.
We usually know there is a process before anything hits CID where it is this ready for CID? And the idea is, have we tested this thing to the point that, like, if CID didn't exist, would we be comfortable with, say, another 2 or 3 months of play testing past this point internally and be ready to print? Sometimes we're just ready to print, depending on what it is specifically.
Yeah.
And then CID kind of comes into that section right there. So we're always pretty confident when we put things out. Obviously, there's typos and things we miss or an interaction that we don't see off the top of our head. But we're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, and we created that entire dev chat thing because that instance popped up. If you were a participant in the Grimkin one, you know that the Dreadrots started out different than they ended up.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out what their role was, and we had conversations about corpse tokens, and we said, well, 3 or 4 of these are good ideas. Let's just see what the community thinks about it in a dev chat. So yeah, it's a very organic thing. We haven't talked about for a little while the Fresh from Locust, the model that was on the solicitations for December that nobody had seen yet because of CIDs. It will be getting CID, but it won't be part of the Scorn CID as the Scorn CID. It might overlap a little bit. We're still discussing that schedule, and we'll let you know when the Fresh from Locust CID is happening, when it gets closer to happening.
Nixu asked a really good question. Are there concerns that the CID's pace is too fast to get good lists built out within a CID cycle, week to week even? And on a long scale, does CID feel like it's moving quickly enough to get through the new and legacy models that need work? The pacing is not perfect, and there's a lot of other things that come in. But is it good? Are we happy with it? In general, yes. Overall, the current pacing of CID, how often they occur, how long they last, and how much we're able to get in each one, we're happy with. But understand there's other stuff that comes up. Would we like to run maybe a CID cycle, but we've all got to go to Gen Con, or we've all got to do something else? Or we'd like to have another week here, but we can't because we've got to work on Monsterpocalypse or other games. That happens. And understanding that there are all of these variables within design and development, what the amount of information and feedback we're able to get out of CID in the time we have, without making War Machine just become the CID game, because that's the other thing. We don't want it to always be CID, and we're very cognizant of keeping the CID cycles tight because of that. So we're happy. I'm sure some things get tightened up, and they probably will be. If you look back at our first CIDs when we first started doing this, back with Grimkin and Trenchers, and you look today, we've come a long way in terms of efficiency, and we'll continue to do so.
Pagani's hovering.
Yep. So I have a couple things in chat that I want to hit just for a moment here. We have one from Legionnaires. Will there be Scorn teasers prior to the CID going live? Because that seemed to really help the Tharn CID. No, not like the Tharn CID spoilers were. That was because of lock and load.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be doing something like that. Certainly not that far in advance, probably because we would have had to have done it a week or two ago.
We would have had to already
to be
do it,
that
yeah.
larger break between it.
Yeah.
Before the Scorn one starts. And then I see a lot of other people saying things like, will we get a Colossal and Gargantuan pass like we did for Battle Engines and stuff? Or will we go over all of the theme forces at once and do like a general theme force one for things that are not currently being played very much? And the answer to those is both no.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because, one, when you do a CID that has 13 or more factions in it, it is impossible to keep track of. It's
very
too many
unfocused.
different people talking about too many different things. That
We learned
you
this
can't
through-
ever get any actual good feedback out of it because there's just like, I'm talking about Retribution. Great. What about this Khador thing? Like, why is that even in the same thread? I don't know.
We learned that
And
through 12 Factions
it's
of Christmas and Battle Engines. Like those two in particular were pretty broad.
Yes. So
Yeah.
will we do something like a Colossal Gargantuan CID? We will certainly not. We are hitting those as we are going through different factions and doing stuff then. Will we ever get a possible Theme Force CID because of lesser played Theme Forces? Also definitely not, because that's not how CID works.
Sure.
Now, if a lesser played Theme Force gets new models added to it, that is how CID works, and that is when that Theme Force would go into
'cause
CID and things like
One
that.
thing I want to add to that is our schedule is both the beginning and the end of things. Because Jason Souls and Matt Wilson and a few other people determine what models we're making and what things we're looking at. But then there's a big concepting, sculpting, production interval. And then as models are close to being released, we CID them. So sometimes which models should we make and how should we make them and when should they get released, discussion happens. And then a month, a year, 2 years goes by depending on what the thing is. And the sculpting and the concepting and the production of that changes that. Yeah. So we can say things like, well, if we were going to promise, this is going to happen, spring of next year, but possibly that model, much like the Supreme Guardian was something that came out earlier than we were expecting, and other things like that shift around, and the gap between the Retribution CID and the Tharn CID was a little longer than we were expecting and gave us some more time for other things. And those are mostly determined by production concerns that we don't have any control over. Yeah. So when we talk about CID scheduling, the CID schedule is to a certain extent tied to other things that happen in the company that we try to work around as best we can.
So 2 other ones real fast. Nick's, you kind of followed up to Pagani saying, while we won't see a mass CID at Colossal Gargantuans, is it reasonable to see we would expect a certain class of model showing up consistently in every CID cycle? No. If something needs to be hit, it will be. If it doesn't, it won't be. And then a really great thing came up earlier. I kind of scrolled, but I remember what they said. They said they felt that there's a concern with CID cycles that there's not enough time to unlock the caster before it ends. Good. That's awesome. We get enough feedback to make sure it's not going to break everything and it's not going to be not viable or completely busted. But if a caster comes out and is new and exciting and takes some time to figure out all their capabilities in the meta, and the meta maybe adjust to them or they adjust to the meta with new lists, that's the point. New things should introduce new opportunities. If that could all be figured out completely in a 2-week, 3-week CID cycle, that's a problem. And that takes away a lot of the excitement of buying a new model and then playing with it for months and learning everything you possibly can do with it. So yeah, you're right. We can't unlock a caster in 3 weeks, and I think that we never should.
Yeah, the goal of all playtesting is to find the place where the model is interesting and you want to play it, but not the only thing you want to play. And then sorting out where that is in the years that the model exists publicly is the fun of the game.
Yep. All right. So we went a little bit longer than normal. That's because the first 2 attempts of this had no sound. But we've been answering a lot of questions. We talked about everything we want to talk about. It's been a good dev chat. So we're going to start wrapping things up here. Everybody, please remember, stream 3 times a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You've just watched the Wednesday show, dev chat. Thursday is going to be Get Your Paint On at 10 a.m. Pacific with Dallas Kemp if you want to watch him paint, assemble, and teach you some hobby tricks, or just ask him questions. He's happy to answer any questions you have about painting and hobbying. This Friday is Primecast Live. Very special show. We're going to have people from all throughout the company come on and just talk about a variety of topics and what's going on in the company. Also, today, big reminder about Mini Crate. Mini-crate.com. Today is the last day to get the Grimkin Lady Rose riding hood. You can still sign up for a VIP and get the Alexia, but tomorrow the Lady of the Feast miniature becomes the miniature available. So if you want the Lady Rose riding hood, you need to sign up today. And mini-crate.com/L5R, Legend of the Five Rings miniatures are going to be coming in the future. You can sign up for a newsletter right now to receive updates and learn more. Last reminder, just because I know there's been a lot of, there's been some confusion out there, Monsterpocalypse, it did get pushed back a little bit. October 5th is the new release date. Don't worry, the rest of the schedule is going to be fine. Nothing else is being pushed back. This is just the initial starter product coming out.
So for just in case anyone's keeping track, that means the Exemplar Warder coming out this Friday is normal.
Yep.
Same thing with my brain just stopped.
John's brain will also be coming out and stopping in stores.
The Retaliator
today.
So the Crucible Guard Light Warjack and the Trancer, the solo for the Crucible Guard, are all still scheduled to come out this Friday.
Yep. So thanks for watching, everybody. We will see many of you back here for Get Your Paint On and for Primecast Live. Thanks for your awkward leaning towards the mic.
No problem. I also have an announcement.
Oh.
I would like to talk about the ATC for a second here, which is sort of our American version of the WTC, which also turns into one of the WTC teams.
Which stands for American Team Championship, for anybody not familiar with it.
It is, oh God, somewhere in Wisconsin, right?
It's
Somewhere
in
there.
Wisconsin.
This is the best
It's
announcement
very
ever.
cool.
I want to announce the
in Milwaukee,
ATC.
there you
It's
go.
somewhere.
In Milwaukee, look, man, it's right next to the airport. I get out of the airport, I walk to it, I walk back. It's horribly cold and no one enjoys it. But the event is great. And it is from January 26th through the 27th. It is a team event. It is 5-player teams. So if you're in the U.S. and you don't have a chance to go to the WTC to either play in the event or to play in the Solo Masters, head on to the ATC. Travis Marg does a great job putting it all together and stuff, and it's a wonderful event. And you can check out all the information at atcwmh.com.
Yeah. And I was about to say, this is a Travis Marg run event. Travis Marg, Dark Legacy, one of our Infernals, known for running events at Adepticon, Gen Con. He's an amazing event organizer, runs just top-notch events. So despite it being somewhere hidden in the Midwest and being apparently a terrible walk from the airport, the event is great.
Have you ever walked anywhere from an airport? It's horrible.
Once, actually, but only once. Anyway, we're getting out of here, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Goodbye. It's lunchtime. I need some Jimmy Jones.
Best comment was Infernal spoilers, question mark. The answer to that is no.
We can't give